Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, Na'aseh v'natzliach. I'd like to welcome you to Ironside Lunch and Learn. This week's Parashat is Parashat BAMIDBAR. Before we get started, give an honorable mention to our gracious host, Judah Mendel. Be'ezrat Hashem, Hashem give you bracha v'atzlacha. And this upcoming Shavuot holiday, you have a spiritual uplifting. And Be'ezrat Hashem, just like Am Yisrael got married to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you also have your zivu come to you bimhera, bimhera, bimhera. And b'zchut Chag HaShavuot, Be'ezrat Hashem, all the Jews in the world that need their yeshut, b'briyut, b'parnasa, b'zivugim, b'siyata d'shmaya, zara d'kaima, all the yeshut. Be'ezrat Hashem, this class will be to Hatzlachat Yisrael, and v'shetatzliach tshuva ba'olam. Be'ezrat Hashem, that tshuva be a big success in the world, and Be'ezrat Hashem, that we shall merit to bring the honor back to Kadosh Baruch Hu. This week's parasha, or this week's new sefer, is Sefer BAMIDBAR. Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, BAMIDBAR, Devarim. This is the fourth book of the 5 books of Moses. The first parasha in Sefer BAMIDBAR is BAMIDBAR. Over here, the parasha begins. You know, before we even go into the concepts of the parasha, the word BAMIDBAR means the desert, or in the desert. So one question arises, it's a famous question, many different opinions on it, which is, why was the Torah given in the desert? Why were the Jewish people taken out of Egypt and brought into a desert? Wasn't there a different metropolis that they could have gone to other than Egypt? Wasn't there a different city, a different state, a different forest, a different village, somewhere else that God could have taken them to? Did he have to take them to the desert, the most uninviting space in all of planet Earth? And not only that, why would that be the place where we receive the Torah? Let alone on a small mountain called Har Sinai. It's a very famous question, and many opinions have been formed on it. It's a good way to start to understand, because keep in mind that Parashat BAMIDBAR always comes right before Shavuot. And we know that Shavuot is the culmination of a 49-day period when we're working on our character, working on our spiritual midot, our midot ben adam lechavero, man to man, ben adam lamakom, between man and God, in order to be refined, more of a polished product right before God gives us the Torah again every year. So as we're going through this process, Parashat BAMIDBAR is always the parashat right before that. So there has to be a meaning to it. It's not by chance. And what's the meaning behind Parashat BAMIDBAR and Shavuot and the fact that the Jews were taken straight from Egypt to the desert and that the Torah was given to the desert? So we have to examine the characteristics of the desert. Logistically, the desert is away from Egypt. It's away from all the bad influences that the Jewish people might be around. They're completely away from idolaters, avodah zarah, bad influences. They're secluded away from societal pressures, foreign thoughts, foreign way of thinking. They're completely away from material distractions. And by being in this type of environment, they can have a real, true spiritual experience. Even nowadays, without religion, many people go to the desert to have a spiritual experience. Many people. If they want, there's some sort of mystique to the desert. Shaman have done it in the past. A lot of Indians do it. A lot of nomads do it. A lot of different cultures have it where they go to the desert for spiritual enlightenment. Even Jim Morrison did it. There's something there. And as the Jews are being transformed from slaves to a free nation, there's a learning curve over here. You don't go from being a slave to a full functioning, righteous Jew overnight. It takes time. How do you reverse all that mentality? How do you reprogram the Jewish slave mind? How do you turn them into a God-fearing Jew? It's a process. And that process was typically a 49-day process, the same process that we're going through. We come into Pesach, or the month of Nisan, with a whole year's worth of spiritual residue, of stuff that we've done throughout the year. We spoke about how Nisan is the beginning of the year, and Tishrei is the beginning of the year. Two different beginnings of the year, like it's stated in the Gemara. So as we're coming into Nisan, and we get to this 49-day process, we're trying to peel away all this, again, the spiritual residue that we've attracted throughout the past year, whether it's between Ben Adam lechavero, transgressions between man and God, and we're trying to refine ourselves all over again to become a proper vessel to receive the Torah again in Shavuot. So we're mimicking what those Jews did in the desert. Now, when you're going through a transformation, it's very important to be present. It's very important to be in the zone. Having the Jews be in the desert, their God had their full attention. There's nothing else going on but spirituality. Nothing going on but the developing of the relationship between God and the Jewish nation, which is a brand new nation. It has just become the Jewish nation. Prior to this, they were just a family of 70 that moved from Canaan to Egypt. And after 210 years, after they become a multitude of people, Hashem took them out as a nation. This is the birth of a nation. So even a birth of a nation, or a nation, needs its character. It needs to define itself. And that's what's happening here in the desert. The Jews are beginning to define themselves. They're developing a relationship with their Creator, with their Savior, with their leader, with their brothers and sisters, this big family of Am Yisrael that comes from the progeny of Yaakov Avinu, as they move towards the future, towards a new life in Eretz Yisrael. And the desert itself has nothing to bring about. It's plain, it's dry, it's uninhabited, and when you're in that type of surroundings, it humbles you. When you're in a place where you realize that the only thing you need in your life is food and water, when you're stripped down to basics, you have a different outlook on life. When you're walking in the desert, and the only thing that you really, really want is the water that you're thirsting for and the food that you're hungry for, things seem to be a little bit different. You would not have the same outlook in New York City, or in Miami, or in LA, or any other metropolis. When you go to the desert, it strips you down to basics. And that's what was happening over here for the Jewish people. They were getting stripped down in their mentality, almost like being brainwashed anew to a new mentality. Like, forget everything you saw, witnessed, lived, or even were exposed to in Egypt. You're stepping into a new reality, and for that, it's like a reboot, a reset. The desert also has different meanings. The world without the Torah is like a desert. A desert, what does it have? It has nothing there. The reason why we're learning Parashat BAMIDBAR right before Shavuot is to let us feel that if there was a world without a Torah, it'd feel like a desert. Yet we do have the Torah. And how does the world feel? The world feels like a world. There's a world out there. And for a Jew, what activates that world, what brings it alive? It's the Torah. And we'll see later on in the lesson how that translates. Another exercise that the Jewish people were going through is that, imagine a God that tells you, follow me into the desert. Would you do it? I mean, I know God is asking, but just think about it. You got 6 kids behind you. You got I don't know how many millions of people going with you, and you're going into an arid land. No water, no food, no shelter. I mean, you got to have a tremendous amount of belief and faith that it's going to be okay. What faith-building exercise was this to take a human being from the busiest city of all time during that time, which was Egypt, and take him into the desert, and he knew that him, his wife, his children, and all the people around him are going to have food, are going to have shelter, and are going to have water. So this was a real emunah building exercise between the Jews and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, besides that, the only thing that the desert is really known for is deserts are known to have scorpions, snakes, scorching heat, wild animals. Yet, since that was the only thing the desert was known for, the Jews still went out there. Why? To strengthen their belief in God, to strengthen their emunah in Hashem. You have to really, really understand. You have to envision being a Jew at that moment, at that point of time. Now, why did the Jews go out to the desert? Why does the Parashat BAMIDBAR starts off with the concept of the desert? Like we said, because the world without Torah is like a desert. And the desert belongs to everyone. Who owns the desert? Nobody. I mean, it might fall into somebody's, state line or country line, but in reality, the desert is a no man's land. You can go and set up camp wherever you want. You can do whatever you want in a desert anywhere in the world. It's a barren land. And just like the desert belongs to everyone, so does the Torah. The Torah belongs to everyone. And you'll see that there's a pasuk that says, Hoy kol tzameh lechu lamayim. It says, anyone who is thirsty, go to the water. What does that mean? So our rabbis tell us that the Torah is given in the context of 3 things. Esh, Mayim, and Midbar. The Torah is given by fire, by water, and by the desert. What does that mean? So he says these are 3 elements that are also free. Fire is free, water is free, and the desert is free. Just like the Torah is free. And he says that each one of these characters of these elements explains on a different level what the Torah is to a Jew. For example, Ish, fire, it lights up the way for a person. Similarly, the Torah, it lights up the way of life for a human being. Ish is also very dangerous. If you don't use it properly, what happens? You can get burnt. Similarly, the Torah. There's a proper way to use the Torah. It could either light up your life or it could burn you. Water reaches the depths. The lowest level on earth can be reached by the liquid of water. So from here we learn that the lower that a person puts himself, the more he humbles himself, the more he can acquire the Torah. And Bamidbar, it's an arid land. When you got to the Midbar, it's almost like a land that says, I am nothing. And when a person brings himself to a point where he says, I am nothing, but not in a point where you're shambling yourself and you're a nobody. Meaning that he realizes in the scope of things, I am nothing. All there is the Torah and God. and you appreciate it for what it is, which is the opposite of being haughty, the opposite of being prideful, the opposite of being stemming from gava, where we know all the bad character traits stem from gava. He says if you have all these three character traits, like the fire, like the water, like the desert, you can acquire the Torah. So we see over here the BAMIDBAR, the reason why we took it out, God took us out to the desert, is because it's a transformative tool to becoming a proper righteous Jew in its character, in its placement, in its nature. There's a pasuk. It starts like this. The first pasuk of Sefer BAMIDBAR says, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe b'midbar Sinai be'ohel moed, be'echad lachodesh hasheni b'shana hasheni letzeta me'eretz Mitzrayim lemod." It's telling us the place, the time, and actually this is the only time, interesting fact, that it ever says that Hashem spoke to Moshe Behar Sinai. This is the only time that it mentions it. The second pasuk says, Se'u et rosh kol adat b'nei Yisrael, count all the heads of the nation of Israel, le'mishpechotam, to their families, le'bet avotam, according to the house of their fathers, b'mispar shemot, write down the names, kol zachar, according to the males, le'gulgolotam, to keep track of them. And the way that they did this is they counted it through shekalim. Beka lagulgolet. So, imagine this, if you want to visualize how this happened. You're sitting in your tent, you're there with your family, you get a knock. You come, who is it? You open it up. There's Moshe Rabbeinu and his brother Aharon coming to greet you and say, hi, we're here to take a census. Imagine the census that we get nowadays as compared to this one. And they come and they see the family and they're taking the tally of who's in there. In the meantime, they get to meet each other and greetings and warm regards. And there's like a personal interaction with Moshe Rabbeinu, with Aharon HaKohen. Could you imagine? But that's what was going on over there. But there was a beautiful interpretation to this pasuk that says, Se'u et rosh kol adam, raise the head. You can read it differently, where raise the head of every man in Am Yisrael because of their families and the fact that they come from the house of their father. What does it mean? It says there might be a reality sometime in the world where people are looking and saying, look at this real estate tycoon. Look at this guy's fancy car. Look at the riches that this guy has. And an average Jew might feel down about himself and say, what's going on with me? Moshe Rabbeinu says, Se'u rashechem, lift your heads up. Why? Because of your families. Because of where you come from. Because you are the offspring of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. You have your family tree to be proud of. We're living in Olam HaSheker. We're living in the world where the evil are prospering and the righteous are suffering. It's all upside down. In the next world is when we're really going to see the truth. And you're going to see the fact that you came from such a prestigious family tree or progeny. You're going to say, that is what you should be proud for. That's what you hold your head up high. That I come from that, from hundreds of generations from Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Don't pay attention to all the materialistic things around you. Your family tree is your success. And if you look at it, I'll be honest with you, there are times when I just stop and I pray and I tell God, thank you that I'm a Jew. Thank you that I have a Jewish neshama inside of me. Thank you that my parents are 100% Jewish. And that they came from a lineage of Jews. And that I'm some way, somehow connected to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. I mean, that's hitting the lotto. I mean, what's the percentage of the Jew on the planet? And what's the percentage that you're a 100% kosher Jew? I'll take that over anything, any day. I don't take that for granted. And it says over here, "Se'u et rosh kol ad ma'aseh mishpechotam u'bet avotam." It tells you the secret to our success is the fact that we always state mishpachot. We always state families. We always check bet avotam. Before we get married, we check if this family is proper for us to get married to. If that girl is proper, what's her lineage? What's his lineage? Letting us know. No idbolelut. Don't be the one to drop the ball. Not in this generation. Imagine, after 120 years, you go up to the Shamayim, and a person might have married a Goya, and you have your father, and your grandfather, and your great-grandfather, all the way to Avraham Avinu waiting in a line. Welcome, we've been waiting for you. And you'll be like, oh, you know, it ends with me. I married a Goya. You're going to be that guy that everybody looks at and say, you dropped the ball? We passed it on for thousands of years, and you're the one who dropped it? This pasuk is telling you, Su'at Shechem, be proud of your bloodline. Later on in the Parashat, besides talking about taking the senses of the people, it talks about the flags. Very interesting subject, flags. On the second pasuk, it says, "Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe ve'Aaron le'emor, ish al diglo be'otot levet avotam yachanu bnei Yisrael mineged saviv le'ol moed yachanu." He says each person should be parked, or let's say stationed, according to his flags, according to his father's tribe. In other words, you didn't go according to the mother. According to the mother is whether you're Jewish or not, is according to your mom. According to which tribe you belong to is according to your father's tribe. So it's saying over here, you should get stationed according to your flag, according to the house of your fathers, and you should all be around Ohel Moed. So if you want to picture it, there's Ohel Moed right in the center, and we have tribes on the right, left, north, east, west, south. They're all stationed all around. And the way that they were stationed, there's a lot of different ways that they were put and why they were grouped together, so on and so forth. But it was very interesting to know that they used the flag. And this is one of the rabbis are telling us that this is the birth of flags. They've never been recorded in history anywhere else where they used a flag to unify a people. Where do we see that? So each tribe, I'll describe what the flags look like. Each tribe had a flag. On each flag, it had the name of the tribe. And it also had an image that is connected to that tribe. And it also would have the 4-letter configuration of God's name, Yud K Vav K, in 12 different configurations. If you like, you take the word Yud K Vav K, which is God's name for Chesed, for loving kindness, because we know that God's name for strict judgment is Adonut. So you have Yud K Vav K and Adonut. Right now we're dealing with Yud K Vav K. That's the name of God that equals 26 and is the one that was put on this flag. Now if you take Yud K Vav K, you can actually boggle it 12 different ways. And the reason why it's 12 and not 16, because we have 2 hays. Otherwise it'd be 16. So each tribe has a different configuration of God's name on the flag. For example, Yehuda had the lion. Binyamin had the wolf. Zevulun had the boat. Dan had the snake. Naphtali had the deer. Each one had a different image. Yosef did not have a flag. Ephraim and Menashe, his sons, had 2 flags. Not sure what they are at the moment. And each flag was unique to its tribe. Now, what's interesting about flags nowadays, when we think of flags, we think flags belong to countries. Or we see flags in the army. We see flags in sporting teams. You see flags in different places in the world. And what's the purpose of the flag? the purpose of the flag is to unify a group of people. Like, for example, if there's a certain sporting team that has a flag, it unifies everybody under the same flag. You see that a lot in soccer teams. If you go to the Army, Navy, Army, they each go under, like the Marines, they have their own flag that they're grouped under. Same thing with uniforms, with clothing. When a person wears a uniform, he feels like he's part of a group. Whether it's a soldier, whether it's a police officer, whether it's kids going to school wearing a uniform. It gives some sort of unity, like you all belong to one group. So the flag was unifying the Jews according to their tribe and overall as a nation, giving themselves a new identity. They're starting to now crystallize who they are. I am a Jew and I belong to this tribe, and each one with the name of God. You can see that these are like the beginning steps of forming a nation. We're actually we're witnessing the birth of a nation. And you can see that each little thing that's happening right here is just like another way of forming them into their character. And it seems like it's going to take them 40 years to graduate to where they actually become a proper vessel to get out of the desert, to get out of college, we'll call it, and move on to enter Eretz Yisrael. So just like there's the degel, which is the flag, and just like there's a beged, an article of clothing that unifies groups of people, like a uniform and a flag. In Hebrew, those words are very interesting. Because if you take the word degel, they have the letters dalet and gimel in there. And if you take the word beged, it has the letters gimel and dalet over there. So, Gad and Dag, Gad is lucky. Dag is a fish which is very known for the tzaddikim, which is known also for good luck. I don't know if you know, but back in the days, the old grandmothers used to have a necklace with a gold fish, like a real interesting, and you would ask them, how can you have a gold fish? Oh, it's for good luck. I never understood it until I just read this today, that they're telling us it's a sign of luck, of good luck. So if you take those two letters, the dalet and the gimel, from the word flag, degel, and from the word beged, you're left with two letters out. It's the lamed and the bet, which come together to spell out lev. Lev is the heart, which teaches us when you have a group of people that have a uniform and a flag, what unites them, what brings their heart together is this unity. And this play on words again shows you what's happening in the desert. As a matter of fact, right now, if you want to know a little bit about the Jewish flag, what's the secret behind the Jewish flag? Why is it white and blue? Why does it have the Star of David? What is the significance of it? Where does it come from? When did it become the flag? Basically, if you look at our flag, the reason why it has those two stripes, that's to mimic the talit that we wear. Certain talit have those stripes. Nowadays, it's more common to see it in black or white. But it was very well known that back in the days it would be white and blue. So those stripes that you see is to mimic the tzitzit. The colors of white and blue are corresponding to the two sefirot of Gvura and Chesed. White is Gvura, the blue is Chesed, which is strict judgment and loving kindness. And that's the way God rules the world. That's the way of the world. The name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, loving kindness, and the Gvura Adonut. And Hashem rules the world with those two. The Star of David, there's two triangles. One facing up and another triangle facing down. What's the significance of that? So basically, it's the secret in the Magen David is it's showing us that whatever we do down here has an influence above, and when we influence above, back in return, it influences us down here in the world. It's to show us that we control what happens in the world, and according to our actions below, it gets recycled back down from the heavens to us over here. The actual flag officially became the flag of Israel in 1948, but the symbols of Magen David have been ancient for thousands of years. Now, this whole concept of heritage, this whole concept of unity, this whole concept of being humble is just a setup for Shavuot. This whole theme in Parashat BAMIDBAR of the Jews in the desert and the Jews being unified together is a mental exercise for us to know this is how you enter Shavuot. Turn yourself into a midbar. Act like a midbar. Act like fire. Act like water. Act like a desert. Get unified like Am Yisrael. How do you get unified? Just like the flag, just like the uniform. In order for what? In order to get Hashem to give us Matan Torah. And we get that from the Pasuk when it says over there that Am Yisrael were standing in front of the mountain. Am Echad Belev Echad. It says that Hashem wasn't willing to give the Torah. But when they were under the mountain, unified as one, he had no choice. He says, I have to. They are one. And why was that the breaking point for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Because the secret of the Jew is unity. That's the flag. That's the uniform. That's the midbar. The secret of the Jew is unity. When we are unified, nobody can beat us. When we're divided, we have no chance. We see now in Eretz Yisrael, and with this I'll conclude, a very prestigious event. The United States put their U.S. Embassy in Yerushalayim. And it's a big deal. And Am Yisrael is celebrating. And it's a good moment. But you can see that while that's happening, there's so much division in the land. Nobody's really super happy about it. There's so much, it's like a one-sided celebration. Democrats didn't show up. Half of the Israelis in Israel are not supporting of it. Riots everywhere. Deaths everywhere. So it's not like a united celebration. It's a one-sided celebration. Only one part of the nation is benefiting from that. And I want you to know that even though it seems on camera where this is a great moment, but it just highlights how far we are from the tachlis, from the tachlit of Am Yisrael. If you take the words Israel, it says the word is Yashar El. God is just. We know that. God loves justice. The whole subject of Yerushalayim, what's the word Yerushalayim? It's Yerusha Lahem. It's their inheritance. Yerusha is inheritance, Lahem. Yerusha Lahem. Yerusha Laim. And we see that when they're raising the flag over there, the flag means to unify us, to bring us all together. So when you're in Israel and when you're in Yerushalayim, lift up the degel is one thing that's missing. That's the true unity of Am Yisrael, the secret of the Jew. And as we enter the time of Shavuot, as we enter the Parashat BAMIDBAR, there is no bigger concept to accept upon yourself than to be united, loving every Jew before God can give you the Torah. Because the whole work of the 49 days that we did was in order for us to polish up our midot ben adam lechaviro, and only once we become very well versed with interacting with one another, then God can say, now you can have a relationship with me. You will discover me by interacting with the whole world. B'ezrat Hashem sheniskeh to the Torah and Shavuot, to be a good vessel, a proper vessel to give it. B'ezrat Hashem, that will have big ahavat chinam to Am Yisrael. As you get into Shavuot, look around the shul and just love everybody. Just look at, I love you, bro. I love you, little kid. I love you, Jewish woman. Just look around and just love everybody. That's what Hashem wants from us. Have a mental flag, have a mental uniform in your mind, like we are all one. And that, B'ezrat Hashem, will get us to the true Geulah. Shabbat Shalom, Baruch, Chag Sameach.